Hello everybody, welcome back to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos, and today we're back with another episode of Player Spotlight. Now, for those who haven't seen this series before, basically this is where we go through some players who are on the periphery of the Socceroos squad, in or out of Graham Arnold's plans, and have a look at where their hopes lie heading into the World Cup in November. Now, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, this is episode 14 on Daniel Arzani, so let's get into it. So as we always start one of these episodes, let's take a look at who is Daniel Arzani. Well, he's a 23-year-old Iranian-born winger/attacking midfielder. Now, when he moved to Australia, he played his predominant youth football at Sydney FC, playing in their academy before getting released and then making the move to Melbourne, playing for Melbourne City. He played there from 2016 to 2018 across both NPL and senior team levels, and this is where he really kind of turned Australian football on its head in a sense, or really pronounced himself. In the 2017-18 season, this is where he made his mark, especially in the year of 2018, especially that front half of the year. That's where we really saw just how good he was. He won the A-League Player of the Month for his performances in January, which goes to show just how good he was in that time, considering he wasn't starting every single game. He got nominated for the A-League Young Footballer of the Year, which at the conclusion of the season he ended up winning. He was also named in the A-League Team of the Season, as well as winning the Harry Kewell Medal for the best Australian male player under the age of 23. So in the space of over a season, yeah, but really in the space of maybe 3 to 4 months, he really pronounced himself on the Australian football scene and really showed to everyone just how much talent he's got. He made the squad for the 2018 World Cup, making 3 substitute appearances across all 3 games for the Socceroos, which we'll touch on a little bit more in depth a little bit later on. And he was probably one of, if not the most exciting player for the Socceroos out of that tournament. Definitely one of our best, definitely one of the players that showed any glimpses of quality, especially coming off the bench. At the end of that World Cup campaign, he made the move to Manchester City in August of that year, where he was immediately loaned out to Celtic, and this is where we start to see a little bit of a plateau or even a regression in his career. He tore his ACL in his first competitive game for Celtic, which sidelined him from November 2018 till January 2020, and then from January 2020 to July 2022, he only managed to play 34 times across 4 different clubs across Europe during that time period. However, he has returned to Australia, signing for Macarthur for this upcoming season, and he's already made 5 appearances for them at the time of recording. 4 of them, playing 6 times for Macarthur at the time of recording, 5 of them being in their Australia Cup campaign, which they ended up winning, as well as the first game against Brisbane Roar, which he played over the weekend. Now, this is who I think it's a lot to digest, how Arzani, despite being 23 years old, has had a pretty information-filled career. But let's take a look at what he actually offers on the pitch and why he was so good in that first 6 months where he really made his name on the Australian football scene, and what he's doing back in Australia with his side Macarthur right now. So as we always do on this series, let's take a look at Daniel Arzani's player profile. Now, when we think of Daniel Arzani on the pitch, we think predominantly of that 6-month period-ish where he dominated the league for Melbourne City all those years ago. Now, what he did back then for Melbourne City was he played on the left-hand side of like an attacking 3, playing as a left winger. And as a right footer, this creates a lot of angles for him to really do his work. Now, what he actually does and what his role is, if we bring up his heat map right now, he is really the archetypal inverted winger. He likes to hug the touchline, as we can see from this heat map, and he likes to stand up his defenders and then drive. He doesn't really play. He plays not really like a direct inside forward. He plays like a winger, just inverted in terms of he plays on the other side. Now we can see that big like red mark there where he likes to collect the ball. Now this heat map is from his 5 games in the Australia Cup this season. So we can see with his heat map where he likes to collect the ball the most. He likes to tug the touchline, really be able to see as much of the pitch as possible, and then he likes to drive at the defense, and then he likes to make his next move. Now, while he isn't extremely quick, he's not like lightning fast. His pace isn't really one of his big attributes. He makes up for it with unbelievable agility and superb close control. They're probably the 2 attributes that we most associate with Daniel Arzani, is his close control in tight spaces. He can get through so many players and he's just so hard to tackle. And also his agility. He can weave through opposition defenses, and he's a nightmare to defend against when he's up and running. When he's running at full pace, he almost runs in fast forward just because of how quick his feet are, how good his close control is, and how agile it is, weaving through defenses kind of seamlessly. Now, if we bring up his average positions just right now a little bit as well, we can see that what this offers in terms of his position is slightly deeper. It's not really the position where you see most wingers play, most wingers play or most wingers occupy. What this does is it allows for the double up of the right back now with either an underlapping or overlapping fullback or even a central midfielder coming across and creating that overload. This allows for the right back to kind of be in two minds about what player he goes to and what player he decides to mark. Now, this split second, this half a second where the fullback is kind of in two minds, this is where Arzani likes to this is where he likes to do his damage. In that period of uncertainty, that's when he makes his decision whether to drive at the defence, to cut inside, to get across in, or even have a shot. That's where he likes to do his best work. And because he's so quick in terms of his brain to foot is so quick, it's unbelievable. That this is where he can really damage opposition teams. And if you're not on the ball and if you're not pressing him really intensely and really pushing up against him, he'll tear you apart at ease because he's just that good with the ball. Now, his main assets are his creativity and his playmaking ability. He isn't a winger that will get you 15 goals a season. He does most of his work in the second phase of build-up play, or even like the third phase of build-up play until you get into the box. Now, like this is a little bit different to what we've seen over the past couple of years with some Australian wingers or even wingers in the A-League in general. Now, he likes to go either inside or outside. He has the ability to do both when he drives at the defence, and this just creates a whole lot of uncertainty as to what he can do with the ball. And this playmaking ability kind of overshadows his slight, maybe not petulance, but his maybe not unreal in terms of goal scoring ability. His playmaking ability is his biggest asset, and his ability to create chances, to play those key passes, to get crosses into the box is what stands him apart from the rest, because he's just so good at that. Now, when we take a look at the Australia Cup, that's what the heat map that everyone just saw there. Let's take a look at some stats from that campaign. Now, granted, this is obviously only a 5-game sample size, and these stats will be of people of minimum of 2 appearances in terms of where he ranks. So he had 3.33 successful dribbles per 90, ranking second in the Australia Cup. He had 0.56 assists per 90, ranking 9th most, 5.83 key passes, ranking the most, and 17.78 accurate final third passes, ranking the 9th most. Now, those stats, granted the sample size isn't the best, granted the opposition that he was facing wasn't the best, but I think this based on what we've seen in terms of he hasn't lost his touch from what we saw all those years ago to what he's doing now. I feel like we are seeing the same Daniel Arzani despite the injuries, despite the lack of game time. I think he will be back to his best this season, no doubt, and I think what we'll see from him is going to be very similar to what we saw of him all those years ago. But let's take a look at his Socceroos career to date, as we always do on this series, and then after that, let's take a look at where his future lies in a Socceroos shirt. So let's take a look at Daniel Arzani's Socceroos career to date. Now, he hasn't made a whole lot of appearances for the senior Socceroos side. He has only made a handful of appearances, but let's go back to that 2018 World Cup. That's probably the best sample size that we've got for his Socceroos career. Now, like I said, he made 3 substitute appearances in those 3 group games, and his first one, again, of course, came against France. He played 11 minutes in that game. He managed to have 1 key pass and 1 block shot, but based on that, on the situation of that game, France did have most of the ball. France did dominate proceedings for the most part, so he didn't really have a whole lot in terms of opportunities to prove himself. Didn't really get into the game at all, so it's pretty harsh to judge him on that game. However, where we can judge him on is his game against Denmark, as I should say. Now, he had played 25 minutes, had 2 key passes, 2 successful dribbles, and 1 shot on target. Now, this was his best game of the tournament by a country mile, probably his best game in a Socceroos shirt by a country mile. He really could have gotten Australia all 3 points. He was so dangerous off the bench. He was the spark that Australia needed and caused a lot of trouble for that Danish defence. They just could not handle him coming off that left-hand side and just weaving in and out of players and just creating so much havoc. It was really pleasing to see. He definitely proved himself and pronounced himself as one of, if not Australia's most dangerous winger in that tournament. Now, he did get subbed on for Robbie Cruz in all 3 of these games. So we saw like the almost passing of the torch in terms of Cruz, who was able to do a similar job to what Arzani did maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. But when Arzani came on, he was a different beast off that left-hand side. He was so dangerous, so deadly, and this game against Denmark proved that. It was unfortunate that he couldn't get the job done for Australia, but he definitely proved to be a handful for some elite defenders in Europe. Now, if we speak on his final game against Peru, he managed 36 minutes, and this is kind of a little bit of a Uno reverse card in a sense of what he was able to do against Denmark. While he didn't perform well this game, didn't really have any stats of note and didn't really influence the game at all. Peru were 2-0 up by the stage that he made an appearance and he couldn't really get into the game. He did have the most amount of minutes. He had 36 minutes as opposed to the 25 and the 11 minutes that he had in the previous two games. But yeah, didn't really announce himself, didn't really prove himself in that game, and wasn't able to get into the game at all, which is a shame considering that Australia probably needed him to get into this game more than any other games in that tournament. But yeah, it was a shame that he couldn't get into the game against Peru, but he was able to prove himself against Denmark, and he was able to show what he can do when things go right. He can be very dangerous in the Socceroos shirt. So let's take a look at where his future lies heading into the World Cup in November, because I feel like he could be a little bit of a bolter for Graham Arnold's squad. So where does Daniel Arzani's future lie in a Socceroos shirt? Well, when we take a look at what he's done so far, which is what we just touched on, we can see that he can do it at international level. There's no doubt about whether or not he's up to the level in terms of playing for the Socceroos. We saw against Denmark, who were a very good side back in 2018. We saw just how good he can be. Granted, he was off the bench. Granted, he was against some tired defenders, but we did see just how good he can be. Now, he offers something that a lot of other wingers in this country don't. With Arzani, he has slightly more of a creative and playmaking winger rather than a goal-scoring and direct winger that we see from the likes of Awer Mabil and Martin Boyle and even Matthew Leckie to an extent. So that's the point of difference that he can offer if Graham Arnold wants to go for that. Now, assuming Boyle and Mabil do start on either wing, with Matthew Leckie being the number one deputy, he could be on the plane. I think it's a very good chance, especially if he has a good start for MacArthur this A-League season. I think he could be a bolter for the plane. Now, he is probably competing with Marco Tilio, Craig Goodwin, or even Ben Falami for that 4/5 winger spot. Now, I think based on what he's offered so far for the Socceroos in his career, and also what he offers based on like what we just spoke about in terms of the creativity and the playmaking ability, I think he does go on the plane. I think he does leapfrog a few of those players. Now, you'd assume Craig Goodwin probably goes based off his versatility, his ability to play pretty much anywhere on that left-hand side. Marco Tilio's had a fantastic last couple of months, especially in his back end of last season. And Ben Falami is taking his game, he's elevating his game to different levels every single week. So it will be healthy competition for spots. I don't necessarily know how many wingers, I'm not aware about how many wingers Graham Arnold will be looking to take, but assuming the two start every game, you'd want at least 2, maybe 3 on the bench. So it's almost, I would say it's more likely than not that he definitely goes in the preliminary squad. I think that's almost certain. And whether or not he makes the plan to actually go to Qatar is dependent on his start to the A-League season, I think. I think what he can show for MacArthur should translate well in terms of what he can show for the Socceroos, because we've seen a lot of players who have shown it at A-League level can now show it at Socceroos level. We see with Marco Tilio, who has shown it at Socceroos level. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we'd all love to see the fairy tale story of this new narrative arc that Daniel Arzani is going through in his career, because he has an abundance of talent. He just needs to put it all together. Hopefully he gets an injury-free run in it. Hopefully his form picks up heading into the World Cup, and we'd love to see him on the plane because he can provide that difference and that real spark that the Socceroos definitely need at stages. So whether or not he starts, I don't know. I think Boyle and Mabil or even Leckie are kind of have locked that position down, but he should be on the plane. He should make an appearance, in my opinion, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not his start to the A-League season can force Graham Arnold's hand into playing him in Qatar. So yes, that is all. Thank you very much for watching episode 14 of Player Spotlight on Daniel Arzani. Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure you leave your thoughts on what other players you'd like to see be given a Player Spotlight in the future. Make sure you subscribe to the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel, like the video. See you guys next time, and goodbye.